reality, egregors, manifestation, and the paranormal. Hello, thank you for joining me once more. I'm Mari Swaruu. No one holds all the truth to anything, nor all the data either. You must run from whoever tells you they do. We all have pieces of a whole, and we get closer to understanding what is at hand by sharing and adding up all the pieces. All I'm doing here is sharing what I have, or what we have here. Before going into today's subject, there is another interesting piece of information about the strange gust of wind that struck the city and downed the tree I was talking about in my previous video. It comes from Queen Alanim's sister, Nishera. The date in which that occurred was the 16th of June 2022. If we analyze the date using numerology, we find that adding it all up, it is 1 plus 6 equals 7. June is the 6th month of the year, and 2022 adds up to 6. So that is 766 that adds to 19, and 1 plus 9 equals 10, 1 plus 0 equals 1, as in the 1. But analyzing it in another form using numerology, it is as in 1666 or as in 1666, being that number 1 before another number can be interpreted as the word, the, or, the 1, so the date of that gust of wind can be interpreted as, the 666. We cannot know what it was, some say some kind of large winged entity perhaps, or a swarm of smaller winged ones. Or just an energy, although in my opinion nothing is ever just an energy. Back to today's subject. Rhetorically speaking, a scientist may respond to my information in my previous video as in, there is no scientific proof of all what you are saying. And I would answer back, you are right, there isn't any, from the point of view and understanding of your terrestrial science. But there is plenty of evidence from the point of view of my science here, that does differ from yours quite substantially, and all I'm doing is trying to share. Someone else may say that all those monsters, entities, ghosts, and similar things are just the product of human imagination, and are part of folklore and myth. And I would answer back, yes. Yes, exactly so. And this is the point of today's video. The fact that something, or some being of any kind was formed by human imagination, does not mean it isn't real. Besides the point that everything that exists in the material world had to be an idea and a thought in someone's head before it comes to be, I can add that it happens so as well with living things and all energy forms and dynamics. As I was explaining before, in previous videos, everything spawns out of consciousness and the universe itself is based on consciousness, so everything that exists, be it material or spiritual, body or soul, comes from consciousness. The basic concepts of how we all manifest things, people and situations into our lives, states that whatever holds our attention the most will come to be. And I've even heard that all it takes is 17 seconds of complete focus on something for it to start to become, or to manifest. This is where manifesting entities, monsters, and ghosts comes in. When people strongly believe in the existence of something, it starts to manifest, to come into the so-called material reality. It can be created by only one sentient individual, or it can even more easily be created by a collective, because multiple people are transmitting the same concept thought pattern into the field of potential energy. This is even how the whole matrix on Earth and elsewhere were created. That is how we ourselves were created, because we are a manifestation coming from a thought pattern that universal source consciousness holds. Our egos are nothing more than the concepts that make us up and form us, and that source consciousness has developed attachments to. So it is quite easy to understand that when many people strongly believe in any myth, regardless if it initially came from fact, or from imagination and fiction, it will start to become a reality, and mostly for those people who hold that strong belief. Because what is reality anyway? I was talking to Taygetan Swaruu yesterday about this. She mentioned having been listening to the teachings of a high-grade master Buddhist monk that stated that the ego was a personal attempt to differentiate oneself from reality, and he kept talking about reality as some kind of base hard truth. Both Taygetan and I strongly disagree with that because we don't see one universal hard truth. All we see is a group of collective agreements to interpret previous manifestations inside the field of potential energy. But we also see the monk's point as well, but if whenever he uses the word reality, we would change it to the word matrix, we could all understand what he was saying a lot better that way. Because what he is clearly referring to, in all his talks, is the reality that is socially accepted by the vast majority of people on Earth. I mean the official reality, the set of agreements of perception and of right and wrong that form the entire culture on Earth we call the Earth 3D matrix. What the monk was saying is irrelevant here, I'm only using this as an example. It was about more of the same spiritual concepts Buddhist monks always say, and I'm not bashing him. If one person does not hold the entire group of concepts another is holding, they are in a different world that can even be called a parallel reality. Even people sharing the same table may be in different realities, and I know that most of you starseeds out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Your dear family thinking one way with their own attachments to ideas, and you there understanding them, but at the same time knowing and seeing a lot more. And a lot may be a grave understatement. Your family, your parents may not see any reason whatsoever for you to be sad inside. For example, after all you have everything they say, don't they? But you have your own valid reasons to be sad inside, or happy, or however you want to feel. My point is that reality is an individual perception, and imposing one reality over another is nothing more than gaslighting and bullying. The lack of understanding and the lack of empathy and communication from both sides is what generates the concepts of quote, me being better than you, of duality, and ultimately is what starts all fights. Even the basic and obvious concept that everyone has a different point of view can be used to understand this point. Whatever holds our attention and whatever we truly focus on, be it in a personal or in a collective manner, will come to be. And will manifest even outside the understanding of science, because on Earth it has not yet come to a level where it can even start to handle this type of concepts. Whenever someone focuses enough on something, with enough creative energy, that will manifest, and will take more or less time depending on the idea the subject has about it being complicated, achievable or not. Manifesting a new car is as difficult as manifesting a pair of socks, but people holding a set of ideas that form a limiting belief system will interpret a car as being more difficult to manifest than a pair of socks, so that is what they will get. Car will be more difficult to get indeed, but that does not have to be so. As I've said before, when you focus on what you want with strong loving, happy ideas of hope, gratitude and high-frequency thoughts, that, whatever you are thinking about will come to be and that will occur whenever your true conscious and unconscious ideas dictate it to be so, your ideas about its difficulty, from where you think that what you want must come from, when and so on. But the same way you bring to be nice things with your good thoughts, the same happens with bad thoughts. As I've said before, those thoughts use fear to force you into focusing more on whatever you fear, bringing more of that to you, causing a vicious circle that may be hard to break out from. When that fear is enough to cause someone to go into a low vibratory state where the person becomes a frequency match to lower astral entities, these can start to interact with the subject. Most of the times this interaction takes place as thought patterns, repetitive negative thoughts about everything. The entity that feeds off the person's creative energy life force will do anything it can to keep that person in that low frequency state in order to continue to exploit the subject. The most obvious example of this are thoughts about self-harm or harm to others that the person who is experiencing them does not want, and most of the times he or she recognizes them as not theirs and even asks themselves why they are so recurrent when they know they would never do such a thing they are thinking about. And whether a person actually acts on those thoughts or are only an annoyance that can be quickly repressed and thrown away, depend on their strength of character and level of awareness. Another point are recurrent thought patterns that self-sabotage a person's real needs and wants, keeping him or her in a lethargic state. Although ultimately I don't really believe in self-sabotage, as it most often has another explanation. The real needs and wants of a person are not what the person itself thinks he or she needs and wants. For example, someone may need to go out and find a job, but keeps postponing the search. That wouldn't be self-sabotage if what that person really is prioritizing is freedom over a 9-to-5 job. This is a quite obvious example, but there are many other apparent self-sabotage situations where the real cause or real motivation is unconscious and hard to detect or to understand. So, whatever we focus on we bring into existence, even the concept of the boogeyman hiding under the bed. We must all watch what we are thinking and transmitting into the field. And the higher an awareness you have, that in turn translates into a higher existential realm you live in, the higher the vibratory state of the realm, and the faster things manifest, the good and the bad. Higher awareness means more data is processed by your conscious and unconscious mind. That means a higher energy interaction with the field. And that also means that you have a higher influence power over that potential energy field you are creating for yourself, that you experience as if you lived in it. Although the concept or the definition changes from author to author, egregores are a personal, or more commonly a collective manifestation, an entity that was manifested, or that spawned from the collective mind's beliefs. The word comes from the Greek grogore, to be awake or to watch. So all the types of monsters, entities, and ghosts that are known popularly and even have names, when they are given enough attention by a large group of people who truly believe in them, they do turn into something more real, for lack of better words. And a lot of the stories that started the concepts behind those monsters also have a reason, and most of the time they do have a true story behind them. Egregores are not a theory. From the point of view of the understanding of the Taygetans, they are not only very real, but in the end, observing how everything manifests out of consciousness and the ideas it has grown attached to, everything that exists, especially our bodies, is an egregore. Why would entities, monsters, and ghosts be any different anyway? The entities who have been formed as egregores may or may not hold sentient thought, most only act like on a program, being that what dictates how they must act is what the majority of the people who manifested them expect them to act like. But there are many entities living in the lower astral realms that exist because of their own energy-sustaining dynamics, somewhat independent from humans' manifestation powers. For example, a soul that once had a body and that is still attached to its concept of ego identity it had when alive, and other kinds of astral animals and creatures that may not fall into the category of human-created egregore entities, but nevertheless still depend on getting creative attention, or feeding from suffering energy coming from living organisms with a soul that has a strong connection to source consciousness. Egregore or not, all these creatures can be considered highly dangerous, but remember, if you stay away from their low frequency, you become immune to them and untouchable. There are other types of manifestations akin to egregores out there that act the very same way. Take my next words as a warning. All human politicians, governments, and powers that be are also spawned from the human collective mind. They get their power from the creative attention they get from the population of Earth. That's why they spend so much energy, time, and money to brainwash and guide the perception of the masses, so they believe whatever they want them to believe, and that will always be to their benefit and not for the benefit of the population, who are just fed empty promises and breadcrumbs to keep them in a deterministic state where they are easy to manipulate. When the human collective stops giving them their attention and their fear, they will lose all their power. All what keeps them existing is the value and the interpretation the people give them. Without the people, they become nothing and they dissolve into thin air. That's why they like to keep the population under constant stress and fear, but it's all false. They only keep some true things from the accepted points of view of truths, so people take for granted that all the rest of their tricks and lies are truths as well. But they are nothing more than lies, tricks and illusions to remain in power, and to conserve the Earth's matrix as it is, or to move it more towards anything that benefits them, and the dark entities they serve, more. The so-called real world is a lot more complicated than what the official narrative wants you to believe. It is seen as reality only because it holds a more logical sequence of cause and effect, and of linearity of events as compared to dream worlds, for example. But the more you become aware of other realms of existence, the more you notice that your officially accepted reality is nothing more than another dream state. It is just another level of the same awareness game, where the only real thing is you who is observing. But you are neither a person nor a thing, you are not male nor female, you are not a human being. You are in reality a fragment of source creator consciousness, as well as the whole from your own perspective. Some beings are spiritually advanced and expanded enough to hold awareness and the experience of being in the dream realms, awareness in what you could call the material world as well, and also the awareness of being astral beings with high connection to source, all at once. Those are the beings who can tell you that when you think you are in your material reality world, you are in fact still dreaming, and when you lucid dream there, you can create and modify your experience with thought and mind alone. And those beings don't necessarily look like light beings, they mostly look like regular people. Most people cannot tell them apart from others, because as always, each person can only interpret whatever they are looking at, to the same degree and level of its own awareness, and never above, because he or she has no context and no more data above that, so they all tend to explain away everything at the level of their own understanding. And this is especially valid for Earth's official science. So be wise and be loving and respectful to all beings, you can never know who lives inside. With much love. Mari Swaruu.